welcome everybody. What we really want to look at today, and my name, by the way, is Toby Shapshak. I'm a technology journalist, and my job, as I often say to people, is to state the obvious. But what I really want to talk about is how important all of the things we're going to discuss today are, because we live in a totally different world. I run a small business, albeit only 10 people, but we've had to radically rethink the way we operate because of Corona, because of working from home. But for all of the other companies that we work with that are much larger, the stuff that we're talking about, not only do we have it, but much bigger companies have it. And what we're going to do is look at important issues like security, financing, user experience, how you have to rethink your business in terms of work from home. And what we're going to do is just kick off with a welcome from Mandy.
Thanks, Toby. Thanks for being with us today, everyone, and welcome on behalf of the First Technology as well as the Aruba team. So, as Toby mentioned, the world is absolutely changing, and at Aruba and First Technology, we really wanted to share with you today some ideas around how we believe we can harness the change, how we can secure your networks, but most importantly, how we can enable you to reinvest back into your business and generate new revenue resources using Aruba technology and First Technology as your partners. So please join us. This is really going to be an open discussion amongst the panel, but we'd love to have further conversations with you after this. So thank you, Toby, and I'm going to hand back to you.
Great, thank you very much. And let's jump straight in, because I don't know about you, but I'm security paranoid. South Africans are genuinely paranoid about security. I'm more paranoid about data security and cyber security than I am about my house. And in fact, it's a useful analogy because most people don't understand the complexities of a security system and barrier protection and threat detection and internal protection and detection. But let's just take a quick look at how security has changed. And I'm going to ask Gerard to just give us a perspective of that, because even though we've all been security conscious, things are very different this year, aren't they?
Hi everyone, thanks Toby. Yeah, I'm just going to hand over to Michael, who's our specialist on the security portion as well, that you can just take us through there as well, and then we can discuss it further. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Garrett. Okay, just as a quick introduction, I'm Michael Lloyd. I'm solution architect for Aruba. So from the perspective of, let's have a look at, Toby, let's have a look at what's going on with security from a cloud perspective. So if you think about what's happened in cloud these days, people are moving the server infrastructure, potentially the storage infrastructure. They're moving all that into the cloud away from data centers that they used to have. So in the old days, they used to have things like what we call MPLS links in there, and those things were quite expensive. And so now companies are more interested in moving their traffic onto internet links, the same links that you use in your home, okay, the same links that I use in my home. But the problem with an internet link is that it is not secure, okay? So I think the question is, how do we actually make this internet link secure from our home or even into our cloud data center environment? So we've got some technologies within Aruba. That's the generic name for them, you might have heard it, is VPN, or virtual private networks. And with those virtual private networks, we're able to create secure tunnels. So from our home environment into the cloud data center environment. Okay, so that enables us, or enables the companies to move away from these expensive MPLS links and into these more secure internet links. But again, I suppose the question is, well, how do you know that the person on that end of that internet link really is who he says he is? Okay, so we can secure the link with VPN, but how do we know that the person actually sitting at the end there is the person? So that's done by a technique called authentication. So we can authenticate the person based on maybe his Windows and log on, or maybe based on a certificate, something like that. Okay, so yeah, there's a great change happening, and we'll talk more about that as we actually go through this webinar. So Toby, I think over to you again.
Great, thanks, Michael. I mean, you know, call me preaching to the converted, maybe, but we just can't get away from it, and maybe we can just discuss quickly, Gerard. We've heard a lot of talk about Aruba's strategy on zero trust security. Can you explain what that is, please?
Cool. Thanks, Toby. I'm going to hand over to Brendan and see that he can tell us a bit about the zero trust. Thanks, Brendan.
Problems. Thanks, Gerard. Good morning, everybody. My name is Brendan, and I'm part of the Aruba network family in South Africa. So zero trust security is really a means that Aruba uses, in that it means that we don't trust anybody, right? Or don't trust anything. So what that means.
I love that idea. I love that idea because like, you know, like Michael was saying, like it's like one of those spy movies. Don't trust anybody.
100%. 100%. And the reason for that is because we assume that there are attackers both within and outside of the organization, right? So what that obviously means is that there will always be an implicit deny all within the operating system of the infrastructure. That allows us to then specify policies, irrespective of where the user may reside, either within the organization or outside of the organization, irrespective of the connection, be it wired or wireless. So we will always secure at that point of connection. And it will always ensure that there is a secure tunnel, be it from within the organization or from outside of the organization. So irrespective of where that user is connecting from, we will always ensure that they will always start with an implicit deny all, and from there ensure that the user is identified to be the correct user, be authenticated correctly, and then of course assigned the correct role that they have within the organization. So that in a nutshell really is what zero trust is. Back to you, Toby.
You had me at deny all. I mean, is that like a parent setting? Can you get like an app program when your kid starts with it? You like deny all, just eat your food. But it is, it's a great base to work from, because actually, you know, in the office environment, there's ways to authenticate who the person is. They're in the building, they're at their computer. The internet, we need to, you know, we need to be worried about this. I mean, perhaps you could, you know, I mean, what about the fact that I use the same Wi-Fi as my wife, and her company insists on a VPN, but there are lots of people using Wi-Fi. I give passwords to, I have a separate network, but I give passwords to, you know, people who come and do services at the house. That I know I've separated anyone else. But what about the people on the network? Someone with an unsecured Android phone might have some malware on it. You know, that always worries me.
Yeah, so Toby, I think you mentioned actually an interesting point there. You said that your wife's firm insists on VPN, and I think that's the starting point. That's the starting point, all right, for all companies. You need to make sure that you have a VPN connection that your staff actually use. So yes, there's other devices in that environment, but they can't get access through this VPN unless they've been set up properly. Okay. Now, also you talked about malware. So as well, one thing that we can do with our authentication product is also endpoint profiling. So endpoint profiling means before I actually let you as an employee onto my network, I check your device. I make sure that there isn't any malware on there. I make sure that you haven't picked up a virus, okay? And if you have, then Brendan was talking about these roles that we have within Aruba. So I can give you a role that the only thing that you can actually see is the antivirus server. Okay, so to be able to pick up the latest virus signatures and to declutter your machine before you actually then get allowed access onto the corporate network. So yeah, I mean, I think everything revolves around these VPNs. That's really important, and then the ability to be able to check the endpoints.
Indeed, indeed. So, I mean, we can't, we can never stop worrying about it. But I mean, we just need to know that a connected device is secure. VPNs are an absolute necessity for any business. That's, to my mind, the starting point. And to my mind, if anyone uses public Wi-Fi, you should also be on a VPN. I am. I think that's like bare necessity. What do you think of that, Michael? Just as a security.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, corporate environments absolutely need to be on a VPN, and you need to be implementing VPN technology. But also, if you think about your guest, I suppose in a home environment you don't have guests, but definitely in a corporate environment you could potentially have a guest environment as well. So I suppose the question could be, well, how do we secure that guest environment, and how do we make sure that, or to, at least to a small extent, that the person that is signing into my guest environment is the person he says he is, or at least I've got some record of that person. So what you can do is techniques like sending back passwords on the email address that the person gives, or sending back passwords on via SMS to the phone that the person gives you when he actually signs into your guest environment. Thereby, you've got some sort of security set up there, because if the person does some hacking while he's on your guest network, and therefore the authorities are going to look at you because it's your network, okay, at least you've got the phone number of that person, and then the authorities can go to the ISP and find out who that person really is, if he wasn't the correct person, and then start investigating from there. So there's a lot of methods to encompass this security from a guest perspective and also from a corporate perspective. But I agree with you with VPN. That's the place to start.
Yeah, it's an absolute no-brainer, isn't it? Let's look at just some of the issues around service management, because that's part of the importance for a big company, is that everything will continue to function. And Gerard, I'm going to ask you some of these. What are some of the challenges that IT has faced in terms of just managing the complexity and the scalability of infrastructure, both wired and wireless, across branches, campuses, remote offices? In a way, I suppose someone working from home is in effect a branch, albeit a branch of one.
No, absolutely, Terry. I think the biggest thing is, and you mentioned it now, that complexity and that ever-growing network. How do you know that you have to log into different systems and everything to just monitor what's happening, and see. And we always use that word, that single pane of glass, and that's something that the Aruba Central, for instance, that can provide you. And that basically rolls into every aspect of, and you mentioned that the wireless, the wired LAN and everything, VPNs, as Michael mentioned as well. You need to see what's going on, who's logging into your networks. Remote offices is always an issue, and now our remote offices actually becomes our home. That we're working from home or working from wherever. Your coffee shop now becomes your remote office. To make sure, and what visibility do you have in there? Who's logging onto that systems? A big thing about is, what is your health looking at? And analytics. Who's logging on? Who's using too much bandwidth? All of a sudden, when we were back in corporate office, you can actually have a look and see, is somebody not streaming videos and YouTube or whatever? How do you start monitoring that now? And all of a sudden, your usage goes up, and you want to actually see that broad visibility around your network and everything. It doesn't matter how complex it is, and that's something that Aruba Central can provide. And because it sits in the cloud as well, it's not another server that you need to monitor and seeing what's happening, but the analytics and everything happens on the controller itself, and that gives you, the administrators as well, not just a bit of trust as well, but from a security point of view, to know exactly exactly who's logging on, see who needs to be blocked off. That zero trust user that you were talking about earlier. Now you've got the capabilities to do that, to make sure your network is in a healthy state as well. And I think that's one of the biggest thing, the health of your network and who's working on it as well. So Aruba also provides that artificial intelligence excuse me, with the health and monitoring capabilities as well.
That's really great. I mean, I suppose that now we're working from home because we have to, but actually in the future, it's a great business model. Us journalists have always used it, especially the two fields I've reported on most, which is sport and technology. It's become a pretty much a way we always work. But I suppose as a business, how do I ensure that my applications are running optimally, and how, you were just talking, how can I track what my customers are doing and what my customers are doing in terms of their network usage? Are they getting a good experience? But what are my employees doing? I don't want them to be, watching video through VPN.
Oh, absolutely. And I think
you can get
that's
Netflix in South Africa these days,
Yeah, sorted. So while you're working at home, watching a few videos, not a problem. So I think what you're talking about, application monitoring, that's something that we usually miss. We monitor to see what the usage is and who's connecting and everything as well. But now all of a sudden, the poor old IT manager used to get all those calls sitting in the office, but my application is not working. There's usually been Exchange and Office and whatever. Now all of a sudden, working from home, it's the Zooms and the Teams, everything, and Cisco, the webinars. All of a sudden, you're having these issues as well. How do you actually start, or where do you start to do the troubleshooting and everything as well? So I think the biggest thing is with Aruba as well. Around the performance monitoring, it's very important, and device utilization and everything as well. And I think looking at sometimes your stuff is configured incorrectly. The devices are configured incorrectly, and then also are you actually compliant? From a company perspective, have you now been working from home, downloaded some other applications to make your life a bit easier, but it's maybe not part of the company policy as well. So with Aruba, it can actually start helping you to do not only the application performance as well, but to go and have a look and see, has it been configured optimally, and the application across your network. And I mean that's the most important thing, because now you're connecting from WAN and from LAN and from wherever, from different sites and different locations. And how do you actually make sure that when you have these kind of webinars and stuff, that you actually make sure you've got your critical services, like your Zooms and your Teams and everything, have priority traffic. That has to make sure that everything is working 100%. And I think that's the beauty of Aruba, that provides you all of this as well. As I mentioned earlier, not only the visibility, but the application across all networks to see what's happening, and then also remediate it as well. Giving you some stuff to remediate it on the fly.
That's great, because it leads into my next question, which is, how does the IT team identify and troubleshoot potential misconfigurations and errors? I mean, can they see there's a problem before the user experiences the problem? That's useful.
Absolutely. And I'm in the past, everything was reactive. Something goes wrong, and then we start to troubleshoot and everything as well. And I think with Aruba, the biggest thing about that is it gives you that insight already, the client performance, that end user performance, and Skalk will talk about it a little bit later as well. Connectivity status, where are these devices? Now you're using a phone and a tablet and a laptop and a desktop, and you're connecting to your smart TV, whatever. So how do you actually monitor these devices as well? And and so the biggest thing is what Aruba provides is that insights. And I talked about the AI based earlier as well. And looking at connectivity issues with your DHCPs and authentication failures and everything, where do you actually start? And I think that the biggest thing is that analytics that Aruba provides, to make sure that it even looks at potential problems coming down the line. It can start identifying some bottlenecks and capacity issues that you're running into before it actually happens. And I think that's the most important thing from my perspective, is the proactive monitoring and the proactive authentication issues, to having to make sure that there are no connectivity issues when you're having these kind of webinars or Teams meetings and everything as well. And I think the biggest thing of that is to make sure where's your connected devices and where do you start to do your troubleshooting, especially now these times that you're not in the office and you can run down to the IT manager and your IT staff and ask him, start with the troubleshooting. And I think that takes out, make sure that we have that business continuity going. I think that's one of the most important aspects.
I hear you. I mean, business continuity, my business may only be 10 people, but keeping running has been one of the hardest problems because there's something about people being in the same room. There's jokes, there's coffee, there's, quick 5-minute. And I suppose what you're talking about essentially is being active as opposed to reactive or passive, and picking up these problems before the users experience them. I think that's part of the evolving nature of IT in this day and age where anyone can be anywhere.
Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of working from anywhere and making sure that you have that visibility and a monitoring on your network. I think that's crucial in especially these times as well.
Yeah, indeed, and it's a useful segue for us to talk about end user experience, because it has such a huge impact on how people experience something. I always use the analogy of a car, where most people don't understand how an engine works. They don't understand how it all works together. They just turn the key and drive off. And for most people, that's how they experience technology. They don't want to know how it works in the background. Isn't that so, Scott? They just want it to work. But I mean, how much of an impact does it have for end user experience if everybody's working from home? One of the first things a lot of people did, and I recommended, was upgrade your home line speed, upgrade the up speed, because up is what we use for this kind of video conferencing. If you've got a 20 meg upline, you're fine. If you've got a 100 meg upline like I do, you're really fine. So Skulk, I mean, it's an important, it's a very important issue. How much of an impact does this end user experience have on setting up an organization?
Yeah, so look, for me these days, if everybody is focused around the user experience, how's the users finding this piece of hardware or this app on your phone? And I think if the user experience is bad, then your IT in general is bad. In most organizations, if something in the internet takes a dip, then you will find calls being logged saying everything is down, I can't work, but it's actually just the internet. But the user at the end of the day needs to do their work to enable you to do your work and therefore get paid for it at the end of the day, basically. So the way you set up your equipment, especially what we've mentioned earlier, VPN and creating this virtual private network between your home office and your office itself sounds like a lot of work. But if you look at Aruba solutions, like a remote access point, can be set up at your head office based in Cape Town, for argument's sake, and just be courier to your end user in Johannesburg. He just plugs it into his network, and once the access point gets connectivity, it will establish that by itself in the backend, and you can extend all your wireless and your connectivity that you should have had in the office exactly like that to the end user's home office. Or even if the user is traveling between different locations, all you need is an internet connection, and off he goes. There's no need to send out a technician to go and set up a VPN, get an additional router, give him all these restrictions, etc. These days it's so easy, but obviously just implement it right and make sure the user don't need to do a lot himself, because most of the users these days, they getting there, they are forced to go into more IT related issues because of the technology changing. I mean, nobody ever had an idea to connect to a Wi-Fi at a hotspot, somebody had to show them. And these days, the kids, it's like, oh, what's the Wi-Fi password? They know there's Wi-Fi.
But I'm thrilled by that. I like, just as a general aside, you know, how did America develop its internet economy? Where did all those apps come from? Where did someone say, I'd like to put a video on the internet and come up with YouTube, or I'd like to put a pretty picture on my phone and come up with Instagram? The reason they do is because there's internet everywhere. And I'm thrilled to hear and see all the time that there's more internet access, because that means our kids are going to be experiencing not how to get online, but what the problems are online and how they can solve it. But I mean, you bring up a good point about you know, pre-configuring something and querying it there. It's fantastic. I mean, it's been a huge upliftment for the country that everybody's using e-commerce and couriers, and it's a much more efficient way to operate, isn't it? Set up a router, set up a device, send it to someone. They just plug it in and use it. I think that's a really, really great solution.
Yeah, and especially the fact that you can monitor that on something like Aruba Central. You can see exactly which IP is connected where, what's online, who's connected to that IP, and then to take it further, you can see what's the signal quality of the device connecting to that IP. If the user is complaining that my link is slow, this is the link is terrible, it's, you know, it's not between his device and the AP, but maybe then later on between the AP or his ISP back into your office.
Indeed, and I suppose that's how a technology like the user experience insight can be very helpful. Like the name says, it's a very good way of seeing what the user's experience is, isn't it?
Yes, so definitely the user experience insight can make IT's life a lot easier. There's a lot of guesswork in a connection from an end user to your Exchange server, because he's using his own ISP. You've got a connection back out from your company. You've got internal switching happening. Maybe you're cloud hosted. So UXI from Aruba is made it quite easy to troubleshoot these days. That's basically monitoring the network from the user's end back into your core, because normally you would monitor from the core outwards. That would be easy. I mean, you monitor your switches, you monitor your servers, and you know your network is fine. But never you've actually asked the user, maybe what's wrong from your side. The user's complaining his Zoom meetings is buffering, or his Teams is struggling to connect. Maybe it's a DNS issue, but you wouldn't know. So with these nice devices that you can put into your let's say your branch office at your home network, you can set these devices to actually monitor your connection going out, your DNS responses, your connection to a specific app, your VPN, even your wireless coverage. And that's also reported back to Aruba on a single pane of glass. You can see what exactly is happening on your network. Is there high utilization? Is there slow responses from your cloud providers? So all of this you can set at home, managing your whole IT infrastructure by looking at some graphs and pages on Aruba. And you know exactly if that user logs a call, this is what's wrong. You can be proactive as well.
I love that, because actually most people drive a car. They just want to turn it on and go. They don't understand that. I'll tell you the one thing I have noticed, and I'm sure everybody listening will have spotted it too. That because of lockdown and the fact that you couldn't ask for help, what I've noticed is people have had to be more tech savvy. Whether people want to or not, they've learned more technology skills. And in general, that's not a bad thing, because I mean, I deal mostly with consumers through stuff, albeit through enterprises with the Financial Mail. Consumers, you just want them to be, you know, more skilled and more useful. So, you know, people are just learning more skills because we have to have new skills to work from home, and we can't call IT and they can't come around and fix it. But I really like this end user experience insight tool, because the end user can drive the car. They don't need to be the mechanic. Somebody else is being the mechanic, and because cars are now computers, we can see what the problem is. So that's, you solve the problem before someone experiences it. I think that's really great.
Yeah, I think these days being proactive is quite important, because if the user have to phone you, then he's already experienced issues, and he couldn't work. In the office, it would have been quite easy. Just get up, walk, tell the IT guy, listen, I can't work. Is it only you? Yes, it's only you. So you already know it's just that user. But if you see a couple of users reporting back before they're actually phoning you via the online reporting tool, the issue. And I mean, these days, if you look at some of the cars, the car will let you know, I've booked myself in for a service because there was a slot available on Wednesday, 4 o'clock. Are you happy with that? And then it's like, this car's got a brain of its own. And it's actually not that difficult to understand, because the car's just seen the odometer reading, and it queried the database to see if there's availability. And obviously you would say, yes, this is great. This thing is taking up that whole rigmarole to get to the dealer, to get the number, get a booking, etc. So users happy, IT is happy.
I love that. And I can't wait until we live in a world where my car books itself in for service and hopefully drives itself there as well, you know. And I suppose we've already touched on security, Brendan, but I mean, I just want to come back to it, because the key thing to just remember is how much it's profoundly changed security during this cloud work from home era that began last year, and it can't be underestimated, can it, Brendan?
No,
and thank you, Skulk, for your answers.
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the security perimeter has changed, right? Has shifted. It's no longer at the edge of the network now. I mean, because with technologies, especially residing in the cloud and applications residing in the cloud and users being everywhere, we need to find unique and different ways to ensure that the data or the integrity of the data isn't compromised in any way, shape, or form, right? So, I mean, there's various methods that we can use. One, Michael mentioned it earlier around authentication, ensuring that the user has the correct role within the organization, and that user can extend to a guest as well. Because, I mean, if you think about it, a guest on your network is indeed a user. And also, if you need to extend the policies from the organization into the home, how do you do that? I mean, there's different means and ways of doing that. One being through a VPN, the other being through a remote access point. But again, it's just around ensuring the integrity and, of course, not compromising the network or the policies in any way, shape, or form.
Indeed, and I suppose from this upgrade of security, we've also have to have an upgrade of how we think about financing, I suppose, Mandy. Thank you for that, Brendan. Mandy, I'm going to ask you this. With the current norm of working from home, there's added financial pressure on organizations to provide all the additional infrastructure and resources that are necessary to support this new norm. How can Aruba assist companies with this new challenge?
So you're right, Toby, and I think if we continue the analogy of the car, we all know we want a Rolls Royce, but very few of us can walk into Rolls Royce and pay cash for it, right? And over the year, that kind of pressure or financial pressure has become immense, because, as everyone has alluded to on today's call, is we've had to grow our virtual offices into each other's homes. We've had to generate revenue. We've had to monitor heat controls in shopping centers. So what we had budgeted for a year ago is very different to the requirements we have now. So key is for us to offer multiple financial solutions, and with Aruba and First Technology, we can do that. So if you have the cash, absolutely buy the Rolls Royce. We won't stop you. But if you require software as a service, networking as a service, so combining your hardware and your software as a service managed in the cloud, or if you need a leasing option, a subscription option, really the options are endless with Aruba. We also, during COVID last year, we put in place a delayed payment option for some of our customers and partners. So knowing that you hadn't budgeted for the growth of your network, we gave you delayed payments over a 3 or 6 month period, and we've extended that into the new financial year FY21 as well. So again, don't hold back on choosing the car of your dreams, and pick Aruba. We'll then help you finance it around the multiple finance options.
That's really great. I mean, to my mind, looking at it from the outside, that's fantastic. Not only will you take care of the security and the end user experience, most importantly, but you'll help me finance it. Can you be my bank manager? Does Aruba too?
Well, yeah, interesting you say that. I mean, a lot of the discussions today have been technical, but if I wrap up kind of our orange solution for you, it's exactly what everyone's been speaking about. It's connectivity. So how to seamlessly connect all of our devices in any place, whether it's your home, a shopping center, an office park, a hospital. And then it's security. So like Brendan said, we trust no one, but we help you build the trust within your networking environment through our zero trust technology.
So,
and then it's AR ops or analytics. So we can tell you when your network is in advance if there's something wrong. But again, to Skulk and Karat's point, we can also give you information that you can help generate revenue for your business. So it's not necessarily just about the health of your network. It's the information that your network can hold that will help you generate it. And then, like you say, we wrap it in a finance model. So that's kind of the secret sauce across the entire solution.
So let me sum that up. You're like a brilliant bank manager for financing. You'll tell me who to trust, so you're a relationships coach. And you'll tell me where to find more business opportunities, so you're a business coach. That's a pretty good service offering, I think. I mean, as you've said, you've had to just be flexible in standard financial services models. We just live in a new world. There is no normal, or we don't know what the normal is yet. And I'm pleased to see the flexibility in how Aruba approaches all of that, the financing, the security, the user experience. I mean, that's flexibility is important.
And it's about, like you say, a relationship manager, whether I'm your banker or your coach. It's all wrapped up as well with a team of people. So whether it be the first technology team or who are highly skilled, whether it be my Aruba team, whether it be our global teams. Our CEO said the other day, we no longer have a head office, we have offices around the world, and it's so true. So if we don't have a resource available locally, we have a global team that will support you. So it's really about building partnerships, and we always say we want a customer forever. So if we don't give you the right advice as your coach to start with, you're not going to come back to us again for advice, and we're going to lose you in the long run. So it's a customer for life is really what we're trying to build as a collective team.
But I like that. I like that essence of it, because more and more people want one service provider, and they want one service provider they can trust, and they want to say, solve everything. You're my life coach, my financial, my relationship coach. How much more can you fix for me? I really like that. And I suppose the more you know about an organization, and the more they know about what Aruba and First Technology offer, the more they can find helpful and useful solutions.
Absolutely. And it's about adapting. Every day is different. Every environment is different. Every solution is different. And how we as a collective team adapt to that, that's really key to being successful together.
I mean, it's especially in this kind of hybrid workplace that we're working with, right? I mean, and that everything is basically as a service. I don't know if we've got an acronym for that yet. It would be AAS. If it was A.
Yeah, it's SaaS or NAS. So we absolutely, NAS, IT industry, we have an acronym for everything.
Yeah, and I love that, because it's the way the world was going. All that COVID did was accelerate it. And I often say, don't blame technology for the terrible headlines that we see. Technology isn't at fault. It's human nature, and all technology does is make us do things faster. And I suppose what's happened in the last year and a bit, I suppose it's a year this month since the first COVID case was identified. It's accelerated everything, and more than ever, you've got to keep up with things moving. But from my perspective as a business owner, I don't want to be the mechanic. I just want to be the driver. So the fact that you know, Aruba and First Technology will be the mechanic. I mean, I'm going to grow my business so that I can come to you and you can manage my IT. Give me a couple of years, but that's what I want to hear. I want to hear someone saying, I'll take care of it. I'm happy to pay for it. My business model is do what you're good at, get other people to do what you're not good at. And that really ultimately, because we've got a few questions. Sam, I'm coming to your question in a moment. But and perhaps you can sum all of this up for us, man, is what we're looking at is a new, everything has changed, and yet it's actually the same things we've always been worried about. Security, user experience, doesn't matter where the branch is, if the branch is 1 or 10, and that you'll pick up the problems in the network, or God forbid any security problems, before the user themselves knows. Like, can you expand into other things? And there's a little vaccine rollout that needs some help.
And we're supporting the hospitals with their networks to have vaccine centers outside the hospital itself. So almost virtual vaccine centers we're busy working on. So yes, we can. The answer is always yes, we can. We can try to find something. But exactly to your point, halfway through the year, we spoke about the new norm. There's nothing new about it. We're a year in. This is the norm. So we've always worried about security. We've always worried about easily connecting devices. We've always worried about generating revenue, being preemptive in fixes. But that's accelerated over the last 12 months. And I think it's always been the underlying theme for most technologists, but it's never been at the forefront as it is now. So like I say, we have wrapped this up into what we've called an edge services platform, which is about connectivity, security, and analytics. And then really, again, wrapped it in finance models, because the future, and Skulk, I think you said it, or Toby, you said it, no one cares what the engine looks like. All we care about is that it works, it looks cool. I'm a girl, it matters to me that it looks good. And then I don't have to worry about it. Someone's going to phone me and say, Mandy, don't worry, we fixed it for you, but this is what happened. And then, oh, by the way, Mandy, your shop front every day at 5 o'clock has an influx of customers. Let's put a handbag special in the window. So those are the new business ideas that business outcomes that as Aruba we're trying to drive. So it's not about the hardware, it's about what you want from your business. To your point, let us take care of the back end, you keep doing what you're doing, and we help you generate revenue together. Great,
that's really fantastic. And that's what I want from a service provider, from all my service providers. And I think that's what anyone looking at the kind of solutions that Aruba and First Technology would be very happy to look at. I know there's one question from Sam Bash, and you said, I think this was for you, Skulk, or maybe Michael. How does packet inspection work when traffic is SSL encrypted while DNS traffic can be intercepted? This is becoming mute with secure DNS. Might be for you, Brendan.
Actually, I think I'll take it.
Thanks,
Toby.
Michael.
No problem. So okay. So if you have it's a bit technical this, but if you have a look at the life of a packet, there's a couple of interception points. So one would be the access point itself. So you've secured the traffic from your device to the access point. No one can look at that traffic over the radio waves, okay? But as it gets to the access point, then we as Aruba can actually decrypt that traffic, because that's our responsibility. Our responsibility is to decrypt it and to encrypt it back to the client. So we can decrypt it and we can have a look at it, okay? And that's where inspection happens at the access point. But also if you're talking about VPN connectivity, then there is a VPN sourcing place, which is normally in your branch office, and there's a VPN ending place or head end, right, which is in your data center or in the cloud somewhere. So obviously the data is encrypted between those two endpoints. But as it goes through those endpoints, it is decrypted. It has to be decrypted, and that's where the deep packet inspection happens. Okay, so the deep packet inspection cannot be seen by normal people. Okay, that deep packet inspection happens within our equipment, and then we report that onto our management software, like Aruba Central or something like that. Yeah. So
Okay.
effectively, that's it. Yeah.
So you can check encrypted data doesn't have any malware in it, but it's not being seen by human eyes.
It's not being seen by human eye. Exactly. Correct. Yeah.
Great.
I mean,
so
I mean, you've got this technology, Toby. You have to trust it somewhere, right? Someone has to be trusted.
No, totally. Listen, I mean, I do my due diligence. I find out how it works. I mean, there are enough people in this room to know a few technology journalists, so you'll understand the joke. And I'm sorry if I name drop, but I said to my website manager, Nick Boomer, who's an ex-technology journalist who does both my stuff websites and Duncan McLeod's Tech Central. I'm sure enough people know Duncan. And I said to Nick, what VPN do you use? And he said, NordVPN. I said, why? And he said, because it's what Duncan uses. So I'm like, okay, great. If Duncan uses it, it's like, my wife and I bought a pool fence and a baby crib. We asked one of our friends who's the most neurotic, anxious parent, the both of them, lovely people, but like anxious and neurotic, and like they research pool fences. We just buy it. So like, that's what I want. I want my service provider to do the things that everybody has said. So we don't have any more questions, but we've just got a few minutes left, and I'm just going to ask everybody to just sum up, the themes that you think are the most important. And while we're with you, Michael, let's just 2 or 3 minutes of what you think the most important themes that people listening to this webinar should be conscious of.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, from what I've been talking about, it's really simple. You need to be security conscious. You may need to make sure that when you're using your web browser, for example, you're going to a secure website. Actually, that amazes me. I've seen a couple of websites from big companies this week that are still not using HTTPS. They're using HTTP. And you think, how in this day and age does that happen, right? So so security, you need to make sure that you're using a secure environment, that environment is trusted, okay, that it's made by or that it's being looked after by a company that you trust, so that when all these services are happening and you just want to buy the services, how do you know where to buy from? Well, Toby, you're easy. You just ask your mates, and you buy from wherever your mate's getting his from. But I mean, that's the truth, right? You've got to have some sort of trust, yes, in someone, and make sure that you've got the correct security in place from trustworthy companies. I think that's important.
Yeah, great. You can't stress security enough with me, and I don't think with anybody in this day and age. And because we're on security, Brendan, let's just ask you for your kind of 3-minute sum up of the important themes. And I like the idea of trust nobody, but build up your trust.
100%. And I mean, on that, within Aruba, we've also been evangelizing the message of connect. So that's done through our unified infrastructure. So that a single infrastructure, irrespective of whether it's a home user, a corporate user, or road user. Protect, as we spoke about, that's where our zero trust security policies lie. So that is ensuring security, consistency within the organization and also without the outside of the organization. So it's again, trust no one, protect everything. And of course, analyze and act. And that, as Mandy mentioned earlier, that is where our AI or our AI ops side of things reside. And that is a means in which, think of it as a sixth sense for the network. Imagine having the network having the ability to actually be proactive and to stop anything or any issues before it impacts on business. And that is done through various technologies. And one of the key components of that is through automation, and that is all built in to the services platform, which is Aruba Central, which Schalk spoke about, Gerard spoke about earlier, and it's it's integrated, so it's nothing. There's no end user intervention needed, and this is all services and technologies that as Aruba we can provide seamlessly, irrespective of the size of the organization or the enterprise. So yeah.
And that's the point, is it? It doesn't matter what the size is, because it doesn't matter anymore. So everybody functions. Small businesses can do huge things. I mean, I can't remember how many staff Zoom had at the beginning of lockdown last year, and look at, small businesses provide great services and need the security that you're talking about. This branch of one, it could be anywhere. Gerard, let's just, if you don't mind, just summing up just how this new normal of service management, as I'm calling it, is that, you're watching the network so that the company and the user experience, you're watching it so that, the company doesn't have to. They can do their job. You do your job, they do their job.
Oh, absolutely, Toby. I think the business continuity for me is just massive, and to have a insight around your health and the analytics and everything, having a look and see what the visibility around the applications, as I mentioned earlier, the physical health of your devices, that actually ties in with your security as well, and to have physical insight, that you can drill down and start doing that type of troubleshooting as well, the troubleshooting tool that's available. And I think, and what Schalk mentioned earlier as well, to optimize the client connectivity, to have that end user experience, and everything, and make sure that you are proactive instead of reactive. And it comes, I think everything boils down to that support that the customer needs. At the end of the day, Aruba calls it customer first, customer last support. To have that 24/7 technical support, but that you don't have people running around. You've got the cloud analytics available, from Aruba Central perspective, that you have subscription available and your software upgrades and everything is available to you as well. To just make that ease of use and to make sure that your business stays on, because a business that's not connected these days, or a business is going to die very quickly. I think that's the most important thing, to make sure you always know what's going on. You have the visibility that ties back to the security as well, and to have the technical support if something goes wrong, and that proactive support, I think it boils down to that as well.
You had me at proactive, because that's the world we live in right now. There's no, by the time, if you haven't reacted to something, 15 other competitors have. We are interfacing with the whole world now. We are living the internet dream. So I really like that. And finally, I'm going to just come to you, Schalk, because I don't think we can stress end user experience enough. I speak at conferences around the world, and in every conference I go to, it doesn't matter what level, consumer, enterprise, government, fashion, technology, everybody's talking about the same thing, which is a user experience. At the end of the day, in a way, that's what we're selling, isn't it? I sell a magazine, I sell journalism, I want people to like it. You sell security and networks and proactive maintenance, and my favorite phrase of the whole day, a single screen of glass. I love that. If only I could have that with my whole life. So yeah, over to you.
I think at this point in time, if everybody's so tired to hear about security and a virus and some flu vaccines, and the thing is, you still need to adhere to it. Regardless, you need to go through it, but just make it the experience a little bit better for me, or try to do it. And therefore, I think, yes, we all comply to these security requirements, and we know it's an issue, but just make it easy for me to adhere to it. And therefore, I think it's so important that we just not focus on all what needs to happen, and maybe just look at how we can make it happen, and how can we get people to buy into this, because a lot of people left WhatsApp because of a thing that they don't understand, or they maybe do understand. but it's just how the user experience it and how you're going to keep your customer happy at the end of the day.
Such a good point, because I won't get into it, but I'm a big privacy advocate and personal data, and it's such an interesting point that people left a service because they didn't understand the communication around the security changes or the privacy changes. So important. A very good point, I think, to end on, Skulk. But I'm going to give the final word to Mandy, not only because she's the boss, but like because she's so damn cool.
Thanks, Toby. I think for me, the message I want to leave is embrace change. I think that it's been a year of fear. Not knowing what's going to happen with the virus, being stuck at home, homeschooling, dogs that drive you mad every day because you didn't spend 24 hours a day with them. But for me, I think embrace the change, because with technology, we can make it better, we can make it more exciting together, and we can guide you through the process. So, reach out to this team. Let's have those open discussions. It may be a 1 to 5 year strategy that we put in place, but don't be scared. Embrace change, and let's build this journey together.
Indeed, and thank you for all the panelists. Oh no, a pleasure. Thank you. It's been very educational for me. Harry, do you think you can hurry up and start a bank, please? I need this kind of service. And I mean, I listen to this and I think, we're too small. I am the RT manager. We're just a small company, but this is the kind of service that I think all small businesses would want. I'm lucky that I understand the technology. I'm a rarity in the SME space because I'm in the industry. But most people don't, and most people don't want to do that. Most of us are just drivers. We want to get in the car and go. And I think Aruba and First Technology have a brilliant solution that lets you guys be the mechanic and us be the drivers. So I hope this has been really interesting for your participants. There's a lot of other information and communication and things you're going to be sent. But thank you very much for joining what has been a really interesting webinar for me, especially. And I like to, us journalists like to think we're clued up and we know everything, but there's a lot that I've learned, and I go back to it. The most important things in the world right now are security and user experience. And those are the two things that you are doing, down to the point where you'll help people manage their finances and be a bank manager. You'll do relationship coaching so you can trust people, and you'll do business coaching and say, hey, there's a business opportunity. It's a pretty good solution. So well done to Aruba and First Technology. My job is to state the obvious, actually. I say that often. I have to say this is a good phone, there's a bad phone, there's a good government policy. I don't say that sentence very often. But I really do think this is a fantastic service. And I've seen lots of similar services in your industry, in your segment. I haven't seen any that is this good, and that just lets people be the driver. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating. Any final questions? I don't see anything in the chat room. Thank you very much. You've all got contact details. If there's anything you need to ask any of the participants, please feel free to do that. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.